What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here. Lost track of time a little bit. Just got really busy. I wanted to do kind of an end of season review wrap up of last season, kind of talk about the highs and lows, ups and downs, all that good stuff. But yeah, I just ran out of time, wasn't able to get around to it, and then we're in preseason for this season now. So yeah, not going to be able to do that wrap up. I probably will, talk a little bit about, kind of the summer whenever the transfer window ends. But yeah, I mean, first game of preseason that was televised at least. And I mean, for first preseason game, not too bad. I mean, we're missing most of our first teamers, to be honest, so the fact that we get a win out of it is good. But it's a chance for some young players to show what they can do. It's a chance for some players that are outside of the first team to show either, some other teams what they can do, possibly so we can get them out, or to show Tuchel, hey, this is what I can bring to the team. And for that, I mean, that's what preseason is for the most part, aside from also getting the first team players ready for the season as well. So it was a good game to kind of gauge where those players are at right now. And, some ups, some downs, great performances, some performances. But yeah, I mean, all in all, it's kind of hard to review a game like this just because, I mean, it's preseason, so players are not necessarily giving 100% because, I mean, you're not really playing for a whole lot aside from maybe playing for a place in the beginning of the season. And on top of that, sometimes, again, you're playing not your first string most of the time, or you're playing, we're playing Bournemouth, who are in the championship, so we're not playing a Premier League side. So it's always hard to gauge kind of a game like this and really talk about it to a level where it's like, okay, so here's an honest critique, because there's going to be a little bit of bias, there's going to be a little bit of kind of skewed results. But with that being said, as far as a preseason game goes, this one was really good. And what I mean by that, it was entertaining. Sometimes preseason matches, you watch them and they're slow, they're just kind of getting their feet, getting up to fitness. This one was flying from the very beginning. It slowed down as the second half rolled on, players started to get a little bit more tired, a lot more kind of just lunging challenges and not necessarily good football. But first half, it was high intensity, high press from both teams. It was difficult to keep possession because neither team was looking to really just kind of wait for the other team to come to them. They were stepping some people out. That being said, Bournemouth still did pack it in once we got on their side of the field, which honestly I think is another good reason for this game. That's the type of team we're going to be facing at least half the season, if not more. And that's a problem we have. When we're on the counterattack, we look good. We look like a good team. The problem is most teams don't let us counter because they pack it in against us, unless we're playing one of the big teams. That's why Tuchel has beat Pep 3 times now, is because he knows how to beat teams that are going to step out against us, that are going to really play us. Whereas a team that's not going to play us, they're just going to sit in and hope to hit us on the counter. He hasn't really figured out how to beat those teams yet. And so this is a good team to play in that regard because that's what they did. And another thing I will say, where last season, we would push, we'd waste a few chances, and then they'd get that goal, and then we'd either nick one back for a tie or we'd lose 1-0. Today we came back and we won it. So that already is a step in the right direction. So a lot of good notes to take out of this first game. There are some criticisms that I will talk about, but it's more kind of player-based. And it's just certain players that I know are probably going to be involved in some sense in Tuchel's team. But they're very minor criticisms at this point, and it's just, as far as the style of play, it's hard to criticize that because you don't know if this is how the first team is going to be playing or if this is just something Tuchel's trying out, a different little style against a different team. But I digress. As far as individual performances go, starting with Kepa in goal, decent. Not anything too spectacular, made a couple decent saves. Had one that he probably could have caught. It was a cross in. I thought he could have held on to it, but he decided to punch it away, which can be dangerous sometimes. And I don't know if that's just lack of confidence, if he's still, getting warm this season. But the one criticism I have for Kepa is he's typically pretty good with his feet. Today, he did not look good with his feet. A lot of awkward touches, a couple of weird bounces on him, but with the talent he has with his feet that he's shown before, they shouldn't be causing him too much trouble. But today it looked like he had some trouble, and there were a couple times that he got a little nervy in the back. The back three, pretty makeshift back three. I mean, none of our first string. You think Silva, Rudiger, Espilicueta, Zuma, Christensen, none of them are here. So all 6 of the 3 that played in the back, completely new, haven't seen them before in Tuchel's team. So it's kind of interesting to see what we're going to get. And the first 3, very makeshift, because you've got Malangsar, who he is going to be a center back, and I heard he did pretty well for Porto. I didn't actually get to see him play there. But his performance today was pretty good, solid defensively. On the ball is where I worry about him a little bit, because he had some pretty bad giveaways. And I don't know if that's something that's just early season jitters. I know he's still young. I think he's 19 or 20. So it could be something just kind of getting those early jitters out of him. Maybe he won't be making those bad passes as he continues to play. But defensively, he looks solid. But then you have Lewis Baker, who, as far as I know, he's played center mid. I've not really ever seen him play center back before. But honestly, didn't do too bad at center back. He had some good challenges to make. There was one point where he lost Solanke, but he did well to get back and block the shot. I know he won a few headers as well. So, and the thing about Baker is he's 26, if I remember them saying right. So this is not somebody who's going to be breaking his way into the first team, I don't think. And honestly, he's a good, solid player, but he's not really a fantastic player. And we're kind of at the point now where we need fantastic players to fill up a couple gaps. So I think this is more a good performance for him to say, hey, some of you mid-table Premier League sides, look at how I can help your team. And I think he did well for that, for his case in that sense. So, but yeah, solid performance from him. Dujon Sterling, a player that typically I've seen more of a winger, wing-back type of role, so probably not going to be a center back, but did okay defensively. His problem was very similar to Sarr, just some issues on the ball. Felt like he was a little careless with the giveaways. Couple passes. He played the simple game very well. I will give him that. Like anytime we're keeping possession in the back, he did well in that sense. But it was the moments where we're trying to get out from the pressure. He never really had an answer for that. It was always either out of bounds or he just ended up going back into more pressure. So little issues there, but defensively he looked fine. So decent option for a wingback. I know we've got James, but we don't really have another for sure option there. Hudson-Odoi has been there, but then he's not been in there. Kind of back and forth whether or not he's actually going to be a wingback. But on Hudson-Odoi, I thought he played well, and he's had these games with wingback that make me think he'll do well there. Because one of the things he's very good at is staying wide, which is most of the time what we need from our wingbacks because they provide the width for us. And he's very good about staying wide, driving in from the side, getting in good crosses, taking on his man. I mean, he's good out there. Defensively, he does lack a little bit, but his pace makes up for a lot of it. He has the ability to get up and down the line. And so, I mean, again, he has these performances where I think he's got to play, but then you get into the second half and he kind of faded out of the game again. And that's been an issue for him in the past. So I've talked about this before. I don't know if it's a focus thing. I don't know if it's a fitness thing. I don't know if it's an age thing. I don't know what it is. But something about whenever he starts, he has a fantastic first half and then fades. But then if he comes on as a sub, he's fantastic because he doesn't have a chance to fade. So it's hard to really tell, like, is this something that you just give him more time, he'll stop fading? Or if you keep giving him this time, he's going to keep fading and it's going to keep hurting you in the second half? It's hard to tell. But again, another solid first half performance and then second half. Alonso. This is one of the criticisms that I have. And it's just because I know Alonso's going to feature. Emerson has a chance because I know he played decently well for Italy. And he had a couple decent games coming off the bench late on this season. But I feel like if you're going for your first two options at left wing back, Chilwell's still the first option, but Alonso's the second. If I had to choose between Alonso and Emerson, I'm going to go with Alonso. And the criticism with that is he has games like this today where he's in the right spaces, he's making good runs, he's involved in the attack, but he's just not doing anything with it. And I don't know, he's just not the same player that he was under Conte. When Conte first brought him in and made him that left wing back, there's something about him. He had this ability to be in the right place at the right time and finish it. Find a good pass, find a good shot, do something with it. Nowadays, he'll pop up with that occasionally, but most of the time he's just in the right spot, but he doesn't have that finishing touch anymore. And it's kind of been hurting us in the couple games that he's shown up in Tuchel's, reign as coach. He's brought him in, and he had that first game against Burnley where he scored, and it was fantastic. We're thinking, yes, he's back. And then he didn't score again the next 10 appearances, I think, that he showed up in. That's kind of his issue right now. And again, another game where he's just sort of out there, being involved, not being clinical, not being finishing enough. It doesn't even have to be scoring. He's just not providing much in the final third. When we get into the box, he's not giving us anything. So I don't know if it's age. I don't know if it's just kind of being cold because he's not getting enough time. But he's really a player that I feel like probably need to move on, and we need to bring in another option. And, we do have a couple, like I said, Emerson's still an option. Baba Rahman coming back. Don't know what to expect from him. So we do have a couple options there, but I just feel like Alonso's getting to that point where he's not consistently providing enough. And I feel like that's kind of why I'd rather see him moved on. And, for his career's sake as well, because he's still got a couple years left in him. So I'm sure he'd rather move somewhere and be kind of the first choice option rather than be at Chelsea where you're going to be playing behind Chilwell and you're not really providing much when you get on the field anyway. So, into the midfield, though, you had Drinkwater and Gallagher. And Drinkwater's a player that, his career just kind of stagnated after he left Leicester. Honestly, after Conte left, I feel like his career kind of stagnated. It's just, he was a good player, but he wasn't really anything special. And so they brought him into Chelsea thinking, hey, let's ignite this whole Conte and Drinkwater partnership again. But he just didn't have that same flair, that same attack prowess that he had because he was a little bit older when we brought him in. And when you play for a team like Leicester, he had the ability to pick out these passes, and he did it today. Very Fabregas-like, that set up Leicester on the counter, which is what worked for them. But again, we're not playing teams that play against Leicester. We're playing teams that play against Chelsea. And again, they like to pack it in, which means most of those times those long balls are not on unless the other team has stepped out. A couple times that happened today. They stepped out against us, whether it was a corner, whether they got up in the attack. Drinkwater picks it up and he finds a great ball in behind. It happened 2 or 3 times in the first half. But where that hurts us now is he does well on the ball, but off the ball, he's not fast enough. And it's funny, I actually finally watched Ted Lasso after all this time, and they're talking about that one midfielder that was getting older and he was a little slower, so he wasn't really able to do much in the midfield anymore. I kind of feel like that's Drinkwater now. I'm watching Drinkwater play today and I'm thinking, yeah, he's picking out some great passes. He's making some good movements, with the ball. He's making some good attacks happen. But then we lose the ball, and suddenly now I got to worry because they're passing right through our midfield, and he's just not really a factor in there when they have the ball. So I feel like that's just something that's really... He needs to find a team again where he can be the one that sets up the counterattack for that team instead of being on a team that most of the time doesn't get a chance to counterattack and is getting counterattacked on. But yeah, it's unfortunate for him, but that's kind of where he is right now. And then Gallagher, ball of energy. And it's something that I remember seeing it when he was playing for West Brom a couple times when I watched the games. He was all over the place. He's very involved, very just quick to nip in, good on the attacking pressing, pressing the defenders high. He's very good about that. The problem is where I watch somebody like Mount, and when he's all over the place, he's making something happen. Gallagher, it feels like his energy, his work rate is good, but it's not really producing anything at the end. Whether his tackles are just kind of leading to their throw-ins or the press, or he's on the ball and he's making a good run that's opening up some space, but then he doesn't have an idea what to do with it after that. So he's just got to work on the production rate a bit more because, again, his work rate is fantastic. And I feel like that's something that we can utilize throughout the season. And honestly, I would like to see him stay. I know it'd be tempting to loan him out again in the Premier League and say, hey, keep working, keep getting better. I would like to see him stay, though, because I feel like I want to see him work with some of these players and get into the habit of you make that first good run, you make that first breakthrough, because he's good at doing that, but now do something with it. Make something happen. Don't just take it and then now the attack's dead because they've got 10 guys behind the ball again because you took too many touches. Because honestly, I really like what I see from him, but I just feel like he needs some more time here to develop with the players around him instead of being loaned out again to another relegation bound side where he's the star man trying to make everything happen, but he doesn't really have the talent around him to really make anything happen. Because I feel like that's kind of what I felt like I was watching today is that he didn't really have any ideas because he played with West Brom, where probably when he got the ball, there wasn't a whole lot he could do with it because there weren't a whole lot of ideas there. And then your front three, probably the most disappointing for me, and that's just because, Pulisic, Abraham, Ziyech, all three good players, and all three players that will be involved in the first team in some way. None of them really showed out for me today. Pulisic, I felt like he was kind of restrained. I felt like he wasn't really taking guys on when he could. I felt like he wasn't taking the space when he could. Just felt like he was kind of restraining himself and was kind of keeping it conservative, which is not his style of play. His play is to be a bit risky, to take some players on, to try to make something happen. Abraham, typically a good finisher, typically good about being selfish when he has the chance and really trying to find the goal, but today felt like he was scared to take the shot. Felt like he really wanted to make sure he had the proper opportunity, or wanted to make sure, let's not be risky with this. Let's take our time, and then if the shot opens up again, then I'll take it then. But by then the opportunity's gone. Ziyech, a lot of chances that he had where he's one-on-one with a defender, and I'm thinking just take him on, but he doesn't really do anything clever. He just kind of tries a simple step over. The defender reads it because they know he's going to go onto his left, and that's all he's got, and they just step in front, and that's kind of it. So yeah, I don't know. All three of them, I felt like this was a game that they could have done well in because they all had their moments where I just remember thinking, this is it, this is the time, and then they just, I don't know, it's something happened, whether they took too long to make a decision or the decision they made wasn't right, and it just, I don't know, none of them really worked out today. And I'm a little disappointed just because all three of them, Pulisic is a player who's shown some fantastic moments near the end of the season. I feel like this is a good chance for him to show, hey, I'm ready to take on this first team role. I'm ready to take on this spot because I know it's kind of been up in the air whether or not I'm going to start. Well, I'm ready to start. Ziyech is a player that got hindered with injury and then came back flying for a second, but then faded away, but then flew again and then faded away. Had a couple games where he came out and I didn't really like his performance, but he got a goal, so he got some more time, but then didn't really do much with that time. And then Abraham's a player that under Lampard he flourished and then kind of faded away after the whole lockdown happened. Came back and was just a shadow of himself. And then second season under Lampard started well and then kind of faded again. Then Tuchel came in and he never really featured under Tuchel. So all three of them really had something to prove today, and I feel like they kind of let themselves down. But they still have 2 more preseason games, so hopefully they can make something happen from there. But yeah, I was a little disappointed with the three of them. But anyways, on to the second half. I realize this is going to be a really long review because it's a lot of players to talk about. Mendy came into goal and, didn't really have a whole lot to do on the goal. He couldn't really do anything about it. I mean, it was just a free header at the back post. So, I mean, not really much he can do there. His distribution still needs some work, and that's something that he's always had an issue with. Passing, punting, just not really the best. But I still feel confident with him in goal just because he's a very good goalkeeper. The back three, all three players that are either young players that I feel like have potential and need to, either get their way into the team or they need to find a new club. Because they're all, I think, early 20s. I'm pretty sure Miazga's like 22, 23. I'm pretty sure Clarke-Salter's like 23. And then Trevo Chalobah. I've heard it so many different ways. But I know that he's young as well. Like, they're all early 20s, I'm pretty sure. So all of them are kind of at that point where they need to start breaking into the first team soon, or else they need to kind of move on. Because once you hit that early 20s age, if you're not breaking into the first team, most of the time, it's hard for you to break in later on. It's not unheard of. I mean, Christensen, I think, is now 24, and he had a couple early appearances where it looked like he was going to make it, but then it kind of faded away. And it seemed like, okay, maybe he's not really going to make it in the first team. And then all of a sudden, now here he is, and he's a part of it. So I'm not saying it's like out of the question. Honestly, most defenders, they don't really hit their heights until late 20s anyway. But all three of them especially, I feel like are players that have had their moments, but then also I feel like haven't heard about them for a little while now. Like Matt Miazga, first American to come to Chelsea, I think. Pretty sure he's the first American to come to Chelsea. But young American defender. He's looked good for the U.S. when I've seen him play. He had that one game against Swansea where everybody criticized him for the header that led to the goal, even though it was Mikel that didn't close him down. But anyways, it's a long dead horse that I've tried to beat, and nobody really talks about that. But he's a player that has had a chance and then never really got another look in. And he's been loaned out, and now he's back in, and he's played again. Didn't really have a great second half. Had a couple moments where I felt like he was walking. He wasn't really turned on to situations. I mean, the goal, Barkley didn't track his man, but he's also just kind of standing there. I mean, he got knocked down because he was just standing. Like, literally, the guy came in, headed, bumped into him, and he fell because he was not ready to get run into because he was not ready for what was happening. So, I feel like he turned off there and turned off a couple other times. Chalobah in the middle just kind of was there. He didn't really do anything to affect it. Most of the time, that middle center back is supposed to run things. He's supposed to be the guy that's sort of organizing everything. It just kind of felt like he was there and he wasn't really doing much organizing. It didn't really feel like he was the center focus. It kind of felt more like he was just another defender. It didn't do anything super great and also didn't make any super big mistakes either. So take the good with the bad there. And then Clarke-Salter, I mean, just felt slow, felt like he wasn't really involved. He got beat to a couple balls. I don't know. It just, all three of them, it felt like this was a good chance for them to show, hey, I deserve to be looked at a bit more. I deserve to possibly maybe make a break in this season because Silva is not going to be able to do it all season. Spilicueta, he's getting a bit older too. He may not be able to do it all season. Rudiger, Zuma, Christensen, all of them have had their fluctuations, so some of them could have a bad run, which then maybe one of them gets to step in, these new guys. And none of them really showed me that. None of them really showed me why they deserve a look in this season. So I feel like they're either going to get moved on or loaned out again. It's just, I don't know, it is disappointing because, again, all three of them, young players that at one time or another, it's like, oh yeah, they're going to be the future. And now it kind of feels like the future is here and they haven't really done much. So, but then wingbacks got subbed a little later on. Zappacosta came on a right back and then Baba Rahman came on the left. Zappacosta, I don't know, he just, player that was brought in because he was a wingback. He was brought in during the Conte era, but Moses just had the spot down on lock, so he was never really going to see any time. And then after Conte left, we brought in a manager that didn't do wingbacks, so Zappacosta wasn't really involved. Now we're back to doing wingbacks, so it's like, is he going to get involved? But I mean, honestly, I feel like James is a better option and Hudson-Odoi is a better option. So I don't know. He's a player that he didn't do anything terrible, but he also, I don't really remember much from him either. So maybe a chance for him to up his price in the transfer window. That's kind of how I feel about him right now. But Baba Rahman is a player that he came in young. Maybe we're going to see something fantastic from him, and then had some really bad games. And then went out on loan, and then went out on loan, and then went out on loan. And now he's back in, and I honestly forgot we even had him. And, put in a good cross for the first goal, but I don't know, just overall didn't do much to impress me. Just, especially, defensively. I wanted to see a bit more from him defensively, and I feel like didn't see anything that impressed me. He's actually the one that got beat for the cross that led to Bournemouth's goal, so just not great from him today. And again, a player that, kind of similar to the back three, needed a good performance today to kind of show, hey, coach, this is why you should pick me. I mean, maybe they're showing something in training that negates what's happening out on the field right now, but based on his performance, just like the back three, I'm kind of thinking it's either going to be another loan season or we're going to finally look to move him on. But it didn't really look like he provided too much aside from one good cross. So, and then in the midfield, Barkley and Loftus-Cheek came on at halftime, and I mean, Loftus-Cheek, he's still dangerous on the ball. Whenever he picks it up in the midfield and he runs at you, he can be dangerous. But the problem is that's kind of all he has. Outside of that, there's not much he does. Defensively, he really doesn't work back at all. And then when it comes to being on the attack, if he's not on the ball, I don't know. I just don't really see much from him. I don't see him making that many great runs. I don't see him being involved. It just feels like if you don't give him the ball deep and let him run, he's not going to help you. So maybe it's still early. I mean, I know he's young, and people, all of the focus this preseason has been on him and Hudson-Odoi at the moment, and Broja, but I'll talk about him in a sec. So I feel like there's a big push to, come on, get these young English kids that came through our academy, get them on the team. But based on Loftus-Cheek's performance, not just in, not just in this game, but also you look at Fulham last season, that was a team that he could really have been the star man at, but he really wasn't. I don't really remember much from him. In the games that I saw him play, he was not really a factor. So I don't know if he's going to be involved much this season. We'll see. Could be. Maybe he'll prove me wrong. But based on this performance, I don't really see that happening, unfortunately. And then Barkley, what can you say? It's Ross Barkley, the young English star that's going to be something great one day. Swear he's going to be something great one day. I promise he's going to be something great one day. God, what is he, 27, 28 now? He's got to be something great. I actually don't know. He might be younger than that, but I mean, he's been the future for so long, and it's just never really panned out for him. And I really think, you look at his early performances for Villa last season. Obviously, he faded as the season went on, but I really feel like that's kind of his niche, is when he's not a part of, the build-up. Like with Chelsea, we just got a good, solid foundation. We got a bunch of players that work well together. If he's not the man, if he's not the focus, I feel like he's just not good enough. When he was at Everton, he was one of the focal points of the Everton attack, which made him dangerous. At Chelsea, he's one of 5 focal points in the attack, so he's not really a factor. And if he's not involved, he's normally not playing well, because if he's not constantly involved, then he's fading out of the game, he's not focused. I don't know, maybe it's a mental thing. But just watching him play today, I'm just thinking he's not bringing us anything. He's had a couple good moments. He's had a few games. In fact, I still see sometimes that game against Liverpool where he was phenomenal. And I remember thinking, my God, Barkley's a player finally. And then the shutdown happened and he came back and he was back to same old Barkley. So I don't know. I mean, he's had those flashes of brilliance, but overall I just don't see him really factoring in. Maybe we'll keep him around as another option in the midfield, but I personally feel like it's time to just move him on, even for his benefit too. I feel like we just need to finally sell him, because I don't think he's meant to be a top club. I don't think that's what's going to be best for him. It's just my personal opinion. Probably have some people disagree, but hey, that's what opinions are all about. You have them and people disagree with them. That's how it is. But on the internet, it gets a lot more violent. Anyways, I think the last two to talk about, because Gallagher stayed in. Those were the other 2 midfielders. And then we had 2 up top, which were Broja and Ugbo. Both got the goals, which is good to see our 2 young strikers getting the goals. But Broja's been talked about a lot in the build-up to this. For some reason, I thought it was Broja for a long time. I don't know why, but I heard him say it today it was Broja. So thank goodness I heard that before I came on here and made myself look like an idiot. But yeah, I mean, honestly, watching him, he started off a little bit slow, but as the half went on, I mean, he grew into it, started making some fantastic plays. Ball came out to him, chested it down, and he looked to find the corner and got a little lucky with the deflection that it went into the goal. But even if the deflection didn't happen, if the defender hadn't been there, I mean, he was going to find the net. Because he was very intelligent. He saw the keeper here and opened up his body to play it to that back post. I mean, that's some next level thinking that some strikers don't have. Most strikers are just like, ball at my feet, time to blast it, and then they hit the keeper because the keeper's right there. He's thinking, no, keeper's right there, I'm going to open up and I'm going to find that back post because that's where the keeper's not. To have that type of thinking at such a young age kind of gets me excited. And then some of the plays he made in the middle of the field, he's coming back to receive and he's being challenged and he's working under the pressure and he's still keeping possession. I mean, it was pretty good to see. I was getting excited watching him play because I'm thinking, this is a young player that I feel like has a chance to possibly break into the first team this season. Obviously, if we don't go get a star striker. If we go get, Haaland or Kane or, some talk of Lukaku. If we don't get a star striker like that, I could see Broja being involved. Because, Werner is a good player, and a lot of what he does goes unrecognized. And I still think he's underrated for what he does off the ball. But obviously he's not been finishing, so if you need a game where you need a finisher, you bring on Broja. If Abraham's not getting it done, you bring on Broja. And now all of a sudden, here's this young kid that not a lot of people know about, which means they don't necessarily know how to play him, and he's got an intelligence in front of goal. I mean, that's exciting to see, and I hope he gets a look in this season. I hope we get to see more of him. I hope they don't just loan him out, because based on what I saw, I want to see more of him. I want to see more of him playing. So, and then Ugbo is a young player. I've seen him a couple of the like U18, U23 games that I've watched. I've seen him play, and he does well at those levels, but coming to the Premier League obviously is a different ball game. Took the header well for the second goal, but outside of that, I don't really remember him doing a whole lot. He made some good runs, did some good things on the ball, but all in all, didn't really finish off a lot of the attacks that we created when he was on the field. So he had his good moments, and he had his kind of moments. Not necessarily anything bad, didn't make any mistakes. Just a couple of moments where you're thinking, in a game where we need a goal, we need you to do a bit more with that. We need you to finish off this attack. So, but all in all, like I said, it was a good preseason match. It was a good game to get some of these young players and get some of these out-of-favor players a chance to play, a chance to show what they can do. Some of them took the opportunity, some of them didn't. And all in all, I mean, it's also fitness. So, but we've got Arsenal, and then we've got Tottenham before we play in the Super Cup. So 2 more games against some London rivals, both not really riding the highs at the moment, but it's more chances for some of these players to possibly not just get a chance to play, but also get a chance to play with our first string players. Because obviously a lot of those players will probably be returning. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I look forward to seeing what the future holds. Obviously look forward to seeing if we're going to make any transfers or if we're going to try to rely on some of what we've got here. But if we do rely on what we've got here, I think we'll be solid. But I think if we really want to challenge for the title this season, I think we need to bring in a couple players to cement a couple spots in the field. So we'll see what happens. I'll probably give my thoughts maybe if I have some time over the next couple weeks. I'll probably give my thoughts on what I want before the transfer window ends. So maybe look forward to that. We'll see. But anyways, I know this was a long review. If you stuck all the way to the end, thank you. I appreciate the views. I appreciate if you leave a comment as well, because I enjoy talking to Chelsea fans about this stuff. But yeah, let me know. Talk about it in the comments. Discuss all of our opinions, and you can tell me how wrong you think I am. You can tell me to, suck a cock or something. I don't know. I know how online people are. It's fun. But yeah, leave a like and subscribe for more Chelsea reviews, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.